returned the smile. Then she said something Sarah clearly wasn't expecting. "I'll wait." For a brief moment, Sarah's expression changed, only slightly. Then the smile returned. "Of course." Linda sat in the living room drinking coffee she hadn't asked for. While Sarah chatted politely, Linda quietly looked around. The house felt different. Not dramatically different, just different enough. Family photographs had been rearranged. Personal items had moved. The space felt less like Margaret's home and more like somebody else's version of it. A stack of unopened mail sat on a nearby table. Margaret never left mail unopened. Never. That detail stayed with Linda. A few minutes later, Margaret came downstairs. The moment she saw Linda, her face lit up, genuinely lit up. The reaction lasted only a second before it disappeared behind a more cautious smile, but Linda noticed. "Well," Linda said, opening her arms, "aren't you going to hug me?" Margaret laughed, a real laugh, the first one Linda had heard in months. The women sat together for nearly an hour. They talked about old friends, neighborhood gossip, gardening, church events, everything and nothing. Yet throughout the conversation, Sarah remained nearby, refilling coffee, offering snacks, joining discussions, always present, always listening. When Linda finally left, she sat in her Buick and stared through the windshield for several minutes. Something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it, couldn't prove it, but after 76 years of reading people, she trusted her instincts. That evening, she called Michael. Margaret had given her his number years ago for emergencies. Linda still had it. When he answered, she got straight to the point. "I think you need to visit your mother." Michael immediately became concerned. "Why?" Linda paused. She chose her words carefully. "I think she's more isolated than she realizes." "Is something wrong?" "I don't know." The honesty surprised him. "But if I were you, I'd come soon." Michael fell silent. Then he asked the question that had been forming in his mind. "Should I tell her I'm coming?" Linda stared out her window. "No." Her voice was firm. "Show up unexpectedly." A chill ran through Michael, because something in Linda's tone told him this wasn't just concern, it was a warning. And Linda Brooks wasn't the type of person who gave warnings lightly. What followed was one of the hardest months of Margaret's life. The investigation began that afternoon. Michael contacted the bank, then a financial advisor, then an attorney. Every phone call uncovered another problem, another account, another transfer, another missing piece. The numbers kept growing. $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, more. By the time everything had been uncovered, nearly $60,000 had disappeared. There were unauthorized credit cards, online transfers, withdrawals Margaret had never approved. The reality was overwhelming. For days she struggled to believe it. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at paperwork while Michael worked beside her. Every page felt impossible. Every number felt unreal. This couldn't be Sarah. Not Sarah. The woman who made soup when she was sick. The woman who remembered Robert's birthday. The woman who sat beside her during thunderstorms. The woman who listened. The woman who cared. Yet the evidence said otherwise. The evidence didn't lie. The hardest conversation happened on a Sunday evening. Emily joined by video call. For nearly 3 hours they talked, sometimes calmly, sometimes through tears, sometimes not speaking at all. Margaret cried harder than she had in years, not because of the money, not entirely, Money could be replaced. What hurt more was the betrayal, the trust, the memories. Every good moment now carried a question mark. Had any of it been real, or had it all been an act? That question haunted Margaret. Because she couldn't answer it. Maybe Sarah had cared. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe the kindness was genuine. Maybe it wasn't. Perhaps the truth lived somewhere in between, and that was what made it so painful. One morning, Sarah simply disappeared. She left before any official confrontation happened, before police arrived, before lawyers became involved. She packed her belongings and drove away. The only thing she left behind was a text message. It appeared on Margaret's phone shortly after sunrise. "I'm sorry things ended this way. You were always kind to me. I hope you're okay." Margaret read the message 3 times. Then she set the phone down. She never replied. Some wounds don't have answers, and some goodbyes don't deserve one. Winter settled over Maple Creek Drive with gray skies, bare trees, and long, quiet evenings. For a while, Margaret moved through her days like someone carrying a heavy weight she couldn't put down. The lawyers made calls, the bank investigated, reports were filed, paperwork filled entire folders. Michael handled most of it. Emily helped from Denver. Everyone worked hard to recover what they could. Some money was recovered. Most wasn't. But after a few months, Margaret realized the money wasn't what kept her awake at night. It was the memories. Every time she remembered laughing with Sarah, she felt confused. Every time she remembered a kind gesture, she wondered if it had been genuine. The questions never stopped. Had Sarah really cared about her? Had the friendship been real? Or had she simply been a target? Margaret replayed hundreds of conversations in her head. She examined old memories like people study photographs after a tragedy, searching for clues they missed the first time. Sometimes she felt angry. Sometimes she felt embarrassed. Mostly, she felt sad. Not because she had trusted someone, because trusting someone had hurt so much. One evening, Michael found her sitting quietly in the living room. The television was on, but she wasn't watching it. She was staring out the window. The bird feeder hung motionless in the cold wind. "Thinking again?" Michael asked. Margaret smiled faintly. "A little." He sat beside her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Margaret asked the question that had been haunting her for months. "Do you think I'm foolish?" Michael looked surprised. "What?" "For trusting her." His answer came immediately. "No." Margaret looked down at her hands. "But I should have seen it." "No," Michael said firmly. "You shouldn't have." She looked at him. "You trusted someone who was kind to you." His voice softened. "That's not foolish, Mom." The words stayed with her, because deep down, part of her had blamed herself. Part of her believed she should have known better, should have been smarter, stronger, more careful. But trust wasn't a weakness. The betrayal belonged to the person who broke that trust, not the person who offered it. Slowly, Margaret began accepting that. Slowly, she stopped punishing herself. The following spring felt different. Not perfect, but different. Michael started visiting more often. At first, Margaret worried he was doing it out of guilt. Then she realized he genuinely wanted to be there. Some weekends they worked in the yard. Some weekends they watched baseball. Some weekends they did absolutely nothing, and somehow felt wonderful. Emily began visiting more often too. Mother and daughter had a difficult conversation one afternoon in the kitchen. Years of unspoken worries finally came out. They cried, they argued, they apologized, then they cried again. By the end of the week, something between them had changed, not broken, healed. The relationship felt stronger than it had in years. Linda never stopped showing up. Every Thursday morning, right around 10 o'clock, her white Buick appeared in the driveway. No phone call, no warning, just Linda. Sometimes they drank coffee. Sometimes they played cards. Sometimes they